Flame and Fiber podcast. My name is Barbara. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Diva S. And I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the new subscribers. Welcome to the new viewers. And welcome back everybody who has been here before. And thank you so much for the lovely comments and messages. I really, really appreciate it. It is Wednesday, October 18th. Things have been crazy since my last podcast, which I did not look up what day that was, but I think it was about a month ago. And it's going to be about a month before I podcast again. But I have been very busy, and I'm going to be busy, and I'll talk about that. But since this is actually a knitting podcast, and maybe you're not that interested in all the shenanigans, as Amy Beth calls it, I will talk about my knitting first and then tell you what's been happening and what's going on, because lots and lots has been going on. So anyway, I'm starting with knitting, and I'm going to start right now. I have 2 finished objects. I finished my mother's sweater. And I've talked about my mother's sweater before. This is the Campsite Cardi by Alicia Plummer, and this is made out of a beautiful yarn that is 60% merino, 25% Angora rabbit, and 15% silk. Excuse me. And I don't remember the name of the yarn, but I will mention it in the show notes, assuming I do show notes, which I might not. But I don't have the tag. I've shown the tag in previous podcasts, but this is a gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. It is so soft. The only problem with it is that it sheds this rabbit fur like crazy. So, when I was knitting it with my mother there, she says, "Oh, I guess I won't wear black pants with it." I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is supposed to be worn with black pants. This is so gorgeous. I mean, this is the perfect color, you know." So anyway, we'll see. We'll see if she wears it with black pants or not. But anyway, I am really happy with it. I hope it fits her. I tried it on her before I put the band on and the sleeves, and it seemed to fit her pretty well. And I finished it's not a button band because it doesn't have buttons, but the collar and the front band while I was visiting her, and tried it on again. It seemed fine. I'm a little concerned the sleeves, they seem skinny to me, but my mom is getting smaller. She's losing some weight, and she's much smaller than me these days. So hopefully it will fit her. I had thought that I was going to mail this to her for her birthday's on the 26th, but I don't think I will. I'm gonna mail her a card. And when I get back from my trip, I'm going to go visit her right away, and I will bring her sweater. I won't weave in the ends for the sleeves because the sleeves could very well be too short. Okay. And they could very well not be the same length. Hello. How did I manage that? So I may need to be adding some to one of these sleeves. Well, good job, Barb. Anyway, it's hard to knit a sweater for somebody else and make sure that you've gotten it right, because I'm not sure I've gotten it right. But I hope it fits her. I can always re-knit the sleeves if they don't fit, because oh my gosh, this yarn was so fun to knit. It's so beautiful. The only problem is you get covered with fur when you knit with it, so you have to wear like my gray sweatpants or something so that won't show up. All right. Oh, I have kava today. I am doing a Chevy Rel. Oopsie, now I've got rabbit fur on my face. So this is kava. Kava is Spanish bubbling wine, like champagne, only they can't call it champagne because it's not from France. But we love it. It's a very reasonably priced. We get it in our local store for like $10. It's delicious. Really delicious. So anyway, that's what I'm drinking. Oh, and I forgot to say, I am not wearing anything I knit. This is one of my fleeces that I am hoping to make enough sweaters that I don't wear the fleece anymore, except today's a special exemption for that because I just got back from the hairdresser, which is why I'm doing my podcast now. That means I've got all these little hairs on my neck and everything, and I don't want to wear my knitwear. I could have thrown on a shawl. I was going to just wear my shirt, but then I got chilly, so I put my fleece back on, but I don't want all those little hairs on my knitwear. Just so you guys could see it on the podcast. Sorry about that. So that's why I'm not wearing knitwear right now. I have to go take a shower after the podcast while it's rendering. So anyway, so that's my first finished object. My second finished object, I just finished it last night, and it is not blocked. But I am participating in Chevy Rails in the Light KAL. She's doing that with another podcaster who I'm not familiar with. And so it's the In the Light, and I don't have a good picture of it apparently. I printed it off 2 times because I somehow managed to miss the last page. I wonder if oh, there you go. I did do it in color. In the Light. Isn't that pretty? And it is by Casey Day Crozier. And it's kind of lovely. And so Chevy Rail was having the knit along, so I finished mine last night. I just finished doing the fringe. I had some trouble with the fringe. The fringe is made sort of on 2 sides. One side, you fringe stitches that you knit as you went along, and on the other side, as you're casting off, it's essentially a knit on, you know what I mean, panel. So you're essentially adding a 5-stitch garter section as you're binding off. Why can't I think of that? That's a very common technique for a lace shawl where you have a I don't have show notes. And I obviously have not thought this through very well. Attached edging. The pattern calls it an attached edging. So one side you fringe an attached edging, and the other side what you're fringing is stitches that you put in as you were knitting along. And I had a little trouble fringing the stitches that I was doing as I went along, because as you go along, you alternate skeins and you're doing stuff, and that apparently messed up the plan for the fringing. So I had a little trouble with that. I have not blocked it yet, so my fringe is kind of jiggly, but I'm hoping that won't make a difference. So I made this out of 2 colors of Stranded Dye Works and one, I think it's Backyard Fiber. And I actually saw that tag somewhere not in my bag, which makes me not surprised that I'm not finding it. But I think it's Backyard Fibers. Now I got a fringe hooked around my button. I apologize for this disaster. Wait, it really is hooked around my... Come on. Stop. All right. So this is what I have left of the Backyard Fiber Works. And now the phone's ringing. And they don't even want me. They call every little town in Pennsylvania. I'm in southeastern Pennsylvania. I get phone calls from every little town in Pennsylvania that nobody's ever heard of, and I don't know anybody there. And the town is not calling me. But do they leave a message? No. All right. So Backyard Fiber Works, and I thought I might be able to remember the colorway name, but I do not. I'm so sorry. This has got to be in the show notes from the last podcast. So even if I don't do show notes for this podcast, you should find it in the last podcast, because I had started, this was the first color I started. I wanted to use Eraser, which was also a stranded color. I thought this was going to be sort of my SSK shawl, because I got all these yarns at SSK from Amy Florence of the Stranded podcast. This phone. I don't work in this room anymore. This used to be my office when I worked at home. I don't need a phone in here. And if they're going to keep calling me while I'm trying to do podcast, well, that's because it's dinner time. It's like 4:30, so the phone starts ringing. I don't know how it is where you are, but in my house, the phone starts ringing because people think you might be home. So anyway, you can see that there are speckles in this, and this color is called Eraser, and this is stranded and lovely, gorgeous yarn. But the pattern is garter stitch, and when you just have the tiniest little fleck of color and you're knitting in garter stitch, it often gets lost. So when I started using that yarn, it looked like I was just using undyed yarn for the first color, which is not what I was going for. So I switched over to this Backyard Fiberworks, which has more color. It turns out that this is black and white, although I imagine Eraser is black and white as well. But black in dyes, it's certainly true in glass. Black glass, if it's not super saturated, special, expensive black, it's actually a super, super, super dark purple. And I suspect that that's the same with dye. So there are places where this black and white actually looks purple. But this is how much I have left of the first color. But you can see, you know, you get the same idea, but it has much more impact than I think the Eraser would have. And I will find something wonderful for that Eraser. But the second color then is faded in, and the second color, and this whole thing is done holding 2 strands of fingering weight. So, as you know, the technique for fading is you just switch out one of the threads, which is why when I went to do the fringe, because you're switching back and forth, you know, one strand of the 2 strands you're knitting with, that's what caused the problem. So this color, the second color, is called Meddlesome, and this is Stranded Dye Works. Stranded. And this is the second color, which is called Meddlesome. And this is her cashmere fingering weight, which is 80-10-10. So that's pretty. And then it fades into Shiner. And the last color is called Shiner, which is one of my favorites of her yarns colors. And it goes into this kind of lacy pattern. And then, so this is where I was last time we spoke. So I did all the purple and the Meddlesome by itself, and then faded it into the Shiner, and then made the fringe. And I really like it. I wish it were bigger, although I suspect it's going to grow some when I block it. But I love the fabric of it, so I don't want to block it too aggressively because I don't want it to be too open or whatever. I like it squishy. So I would put it on and show you, but I don't want those little hairs on it. So this is going to be a lovely, lovely shawl to keep me warm this winter because I get cold. Oh my gosh, I was so cold last night that I had a fleece on, I had a wool hat on, and my wool socks, and Dennis made me a fire. I needed a fire. I was drinking hot water to try to warm up my insides. I was so cold. I don't know why. Well, our heater was on, and we set our heat at 66 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's not a warm house. And it's the first time. I think it's the first time that he's really been on all day. Because it finally got a little chill here. So anyway, I will be sitting in my chair all squished up. So I need to take a picture of this and get it into the, I still have that rabbit fur on me. Get it into the Instagram hashtag for finished objects. But I'm loving the colors and I love the squish. I wish it was a little bigger, but it may end up being a little bigger. Or it may end up actually, I can imagine it being kind of the perfect size to use as a winter scarf. So maybe I don't want it bigger. Sometimes I'm wrong. My Find Your Fade, I have it next to my chair where I sit and watch TV and read and knit. And when I feel like I'm cold and I want a shawl, I don't find the Find Your Fade actually works well for me. That long, skinny, open shawl is not giving me the coverage I need when I'm sitting there feeling cold because I've been sitting too long. I could get up and that would solve it. But something about, you know, the long tails, and so I need to switch out a different shawl for my chair because the Find Your Fade isn't working. It works okay. I mean, I like it and I think I can use it in other settings, but I think my chair where I get sit and get chilly is not the place for my Find Your Fade. I am sorry about the glare on these glasses. I paid a lot of money to have non-glare glasses. How do you think that worked out? Oh, well. So those are my two finished objects. I didn't work on my portage cardigan since I saw you last, I don't think. I'm about ready to start the pocket details. Actually, I don't remember if I did or not. I can show it to you. I might. It's possible that I even have a... Oh, there's my book. I couldn't find my book, which is why I don't have any notes. Shoot. I took an empty book to the hairdressers thinking, oh, I'm going to do notes. I didn't. I also took my London guidebook. That's some foreshadowing about the shenanigans. Okay. So did I... So here's my portage cardigan. And I have just... I really love this. I'm excited, but I won't be working on it for... I just finished the collar and the front band detail of this. And the next thing that happens is the pockets. You do one pocket and then you do another pocket, and then you connect them. You can see how the pocket... Oh, this is by Melissa Shashwari. Sorry. The portage. And you can see how that makes a collar here and then it just swings into the pocket. So this is where I am. I've done all this here and now I've got to do this, and it connects here, and then I'll have the sleeves and I'll be done. That will be happening in November, but I don't recall where I was. This yarn is the Cloudborn Alpaca Wool yarn in the DK weight, and it is in the color Prism, which I also really love. You cannot see it on the camera, I'm quite sure, but it's got every color of thread in there. There's purples and pinks, and so this is Cloudborn is Craftsy's brand. So that will be my Christmas sweater. I will have that finished for myself by Christmas. So I might have worked on that, but I'm not sure. But I did. I had already finished my father-in-law's hat when I podcast last, but here's him wearing it. I finally gave it to him. I'll put it there. He's 101. And it's the first thing I've knit him. But I don't think he would have, there aren't many things that I could have knit him that he would likely wear. And the hat that I knit him was the Midas hat. And since I had originally thought that I was knitting the Midas hat for myself, and this is by Laura Reinbach, but decided to give it to him when we were out in the Outer Banks before we got evacuated, I decided to make myself one. So this is a Midas, and this, I'm making this out of Shalimar yarns. Breathless is the base, and it's a 75% superwash merino, 15% cashmere, and 10% silk. And the color is Bungalow. And it is the wildest yarn. It's got every color. Isn't that fun? I'm a little disappointed because when the way you make this hat is you do a 4-inch piece, about that much, then you fold it over and you do and then you do another 4-inch piece, and then you fold it over and combine it, so you've really got a doubled over brim over your ears, so it'll be nice and warm. But this was the first 4 inches that I knit. Look at that gorgeous pooling. I was so excited. I loved it. And then my gauge changed, the yarn changed, the count changed. I don't know what changed, but I did not get that gorgeous pooling on this side, which is too bad. Although I can always flip it up and have it tripled, and just it won't be slouchy. But I still love it. It got a little bit of pooling there. The stripes change or whatever, you know. And I suspect that I'm going to get all kinds of changes in what it looks like once I start decreasing too. So, and I'll tell you the truth. I think I took out a couple of stitches trying to make some changes to the look of the yarn. So who knows, maybe I will have had an effect. I will probably have totally messed up the normal decreases by doing that. But you know what? I'm the boss of my knitting, and I loved that pooling. So I am starting to get it a little more. But this is a gorgeous yarn, and so I decided to make myself a hat. I'm a little bit off, still a little bit off socks. I have not touched those socks that I'm making with the Flexi Flip needles. I think I don't love the Flexi Flips, and so not having a super strong inclination to knit socks anyway, I haven't touched those socks. So somebody may be getting Flexi Flips for Christmas or whatever. That's it. That's what I've been knitting on since I talked to you last. I have listened to and read quite a few books. I've been quite busy, and so for the amount of time that it's been since the last podcast, you would have expected maybe a little bit more knitting, but that's all I've been doing. Oh, here's the bag I made my mom's sweater in. I have quite a bit of that yarn left. So I'm going to probably end up making her maybe some fingerless mitts. She gets cold too. So you can see the flying. She gets cold too. So I'm going to make her some just for her house. I think you can see the Angora flying. This is the yarn I made my mom's sweater out of. Twisted yarn and fiber. Bags and Notions. They do not have an Etsy shop as far as I know. I got this at the Allentown Festival. And it's so, so lovely. Okay. That's it for the knitting. If you're here for only knitting, then it's a short podcast. Because that's all I have. But I've been very, very busy. beginning of October, I flew to Florida to visit my son and daughter-in-law and my 2 granddaughters because I hadn't seen them since. This is the bag that was in with that yarn. This is a Notions pouch. I'm sitting here distracted by all this fur on it, so I'm going to have to roll this. This is a Notion pouch I'm using from Luli. It's very cute, but it's now very fuzzy. I will put it down. So anyway, went to visit my granddaughters. Let's face it. I mean, I visited my son and my daughter-in-law too, but I went there to see my granddaughters. I had taken them to Florida when my kids moved there, when the kids moved there in July, and I hadn't seen them since July. And we are going to drive to Florida for Thanksgiving, and so I will see them at the end of November, but I told Dennis I'm not going from July to November. Sammy started to talk. Isabel's doing all kinds of stuff. It was an amazing visit. Isabel's doing karate. She was so cute doing her karate. She's a rules follower. I mean, which is not to say she doesn't talk back and she's not a kid and doesn't get into trouble. She does. But if you tell her something, you need to make sure you've got it correct, because once she believes something, you can't change her mind. That's what it is. So she's a bit of a rules follower, which is not a bad thing. I think it's a first child kind of thing. I have a lot in common with Samantha, and I think she and I are going to be like best buddies because I was the second daughter, and my older sister is a rules follower. So anyway, Sammy and I go together there. But Isabel's adorable and wonderful. And so she's so cute in karate. She's only been doing it for a little while. But, you know, you have to stand on your spot. There's spots on the mat. You have to stand on your spot. You have to look at the sensei. The teacher's called a sensei. You got to look at the sensei. You got to do what they say. Oh, my gosh. I might put a little video of her doing her karate at the end of this podcast. I might do that. She's so cute. I had to take it through like a tinted window, but you can see her really well. I know. You don't care. I know. I get it. But I'm so in love with these girls. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I had a lovely visit with the kids. Isabel's going to get bruises on the back of her calves from that backpack of hers. She's got this giant backpack and she's walking into school. Bang, bang. Ugh, so cute. Anyway, lovely, lovely. I had a nice visit, and I have a friend who lives in Sarasota. And so I arrived at the kids on Tuesday, and on Friday she picked me up, and I spent the evening with her, and then she took me to the airport. So that was lovely. And I had a wonderful visit, and I have no funny, horrible stories to tell about those flights or anything, which is a good thing. Just eventless. Came home. So we had gone to North Carolina, and I talked to you about that, and we got evacuated because of the Hurricane Florence. Well, a couple weeks later, a week and a half later, and I'm not sure this had happened by the time I should have watched my other podcast, I guess, to remember what I said. But anyway, the owner of the property felt bad that we got so shortchanged on our week, because we got there on Saturday and were evacuated on Tuesday. So we were not there very long. And so they offered us the week of October 6th through the 13th. They hadn't had anybody in that week, and if we wanted that week, we could have it for free, which we thought was so lovely, especially since we had already informed them that we would not be rebooking our week next year, because this is a very big house. It has 13 bedrooms and 12 bathrooms, full-size bathrooms. I think the 2 bunk bedrooms share a bathroom. Everybody else has a queen-size or a king-size bed and a bathroom for each of the bedrooms. It's a huge house, which is why we drive all the way to North Carolina, because we can't find houses that big in New Jersey. We started going there because my mother and father-in-law were in Florida and we met. But now they're up here, but we still keep going because we can't find houses that big. But it turned out that it's a little too big for us now. We can't get enough people to commit well enough in advance. And some of us had to chip in more this year because we had people back out. So we had told them that we weren't going to come back, and they still offered us this week, which we thought was really lovely. So so I got home on Saturday. Everybody else was heading off to North Carolina. I got home on Saturday, but I'm having some procedures done on the veins of one of my legs. That my leg was giving me trouble. The veins in my leg was giving me the veins in my leg were giving me trouble. And so over the past, since May, I've been doing things to help my leg. And I had a procedure on Monday scheduled, and I couldn't change it. So I came home on Saturday. I was home on Sunday getting ready to go to North Carolina. And then on Monday, I had my procedure in the afternoon, and then we drove to North Carolina. We got to Nags Head about 11 o'clock at night on Monday. So Dennis and I had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday all day, and then we drove back on Saturday. But while we were going down, we were listening to a book. It's a really interesting book, and someone, maybe a podcaster or maybe it was a friend, recommended it. It's a book called Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. And Erik Larson has done a couple really interesting books. He wrote The Garden of the Beast, I think it was called, which is about the United States ambassador to Germany right before World War II and what was going on in Berlin before we declared war on Germany. And it was very interesting. But he's an interesting writer. So this is I was going to say it's a nonfiction book, but it's not a nonfiction book because he tells you what people are thinking and stuff that he can't possibly know. But it's the story of the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America by Columbus, the Columbian expedition of 1892, held in Chicago. And at the same time that they were doing this, during this exhibition, which was held for 6 months, there was also a serial killer in Chicago. And so it's the story of the people who were building this great expedition and this serial killer and what he was doing. It was really interesting, and we were listening to that on the way to North Carolina. So I've been, getting books out of libraries, and this was one of them. And The Devil in the White City, I think it's called, by Erik Larson. So we're listening to this book, we're just trucking down, and we're in Maryland, and we get pulled over. I can't remember the last time we were pulled over. Dennis was driving, so pull off, and the police officer comes to the window and says, I stopped you because you seem to be veering a little bit outside the lines of the road, and you were driving 49 miles an hour in a 55-mile zone. He said, it's not common to stop people for going too slow. Well, he didn't realize it, and, we were listening to this book, which can be a little bit mesmerizing, so it's not like you're driving unsafely or you're not seeing what's going on, but you get a little bit lulled as you do. And we were driving behind somebody, and we were just pacing, and we got into a rhythm with this person, whoever they were, and we were listening to the book and didn't realize how slow we were going. Every once in a while, Dennis would realize, oh, I could go faster. And you know how when, you kind of get ready to pull, pass, and, your car goes over a little bit, and then you see there's a car coming up because it was 2 lanes going our direction. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. He might have gone off on the other side. He was not driving erratically. He was not driving unsafely. He was, And I don't think it's illegal to drive 6 miles under the speed limit anywhere. The speed limit is supposed to be the top speed. But anyway, So apparently, our guess is that he looked like a drunk driver who was trying to stay in the middle of the road and trying not to attract the attention of the cops by going a little bit under so he wasn't speeding. That's our guess. We don't know. Dennis got a warning. He didn't get a warning for going too slow because I don't think that's an actual offense. Not on a 4-lane highway where people can pass you. And it wasn't traffic-y. So he got a warning for, I don't know, like driving on the lines. Got stopped for going too slow. Which is kind of ironic because when we used to drive to Florida on I-95, we were always very careful in Maryland because Maryland on 95, those guys, they'll give you a ticket like that for speeding, especially if you're not from Maryland. FYI. But apparently, I mean, we were going down the Eastern Shore, and apparently those guys have a different view of things. So that was the only excitement. We got pulled over, but Dennis didn't get a ticket, obviously. And because we weren't drinking, and we weren't on drugs or whatever, so we had a lovely time. So we got our chance to be in Nag's Head. I got a chance to go to Knitting Addiction. I was complaining that I hadn't been able to go to Knitting Addiction because it wasn't open for the days we were there because we were only there 2 full days, Sunday and Monday, and those are the days that she's closed. But I got to go, so I will show you. I forgot, no show notes. I forgot to draw for the second Podiversary giveaway, and I will do that when I'm done with this part of the recording, and it'll be at the end. So if you want to just skip all the rest of the baloney that I'm going to keep going on and on about and want to know if you won or not, you can go. But if you may want to wait a second because I bought the present. I bought the prize. I got it at Knitting Addiction, which is the store that made me want to start knitting so I could own all the beautiful yarn. This is a colorway, she says, is exclusive to Knitting Addiction. It's called Garden Party. And I've never heard of these people, Arkansas Yarn Company. But this is and I'm not into socks these days, but I just thought this was a beautiful combination. And it's sparkly. People like sparkly. Isn't that pretty? This is 75%. Oh, well, see, and I hope you're not like me, because 75% merino, 20% nylon, and 5% stellina. That stellina isn't going to add any warmth, so. But these are so pretty. And I'm a sucker for the way it's bundled up. I am not taking it apart. I'm going to mail it just like this and hope it stays nice. So this is the prize, and so I was able to go to Knitting Addiction, but this is the only thing I got there. And, oh, and the other thing I wanted was Biscuits and Porn. I had heard about Biscuits and Porn. People had t-shirts, Biscuits and Porn. Supposedly you walk in the front door and there's biscuits on the left and porn on the right. I'm like, oh my gosh. And my mother-in-law and aunt and Dennis's aunt had gone and had biscuits and didn't tell me very much about it, but they didn't go with me, and so I hadn't had a chance to see it, and I was so excited about it. What a big disappointment. Oh my gosh. Here, I'll show you. There's a picture of the sign. And then, so I was taking a picture of the sign, and there was a guy standing out front, and he says, oh, here's another sign. And so here's a picture of the other sign. Okay. And here's a picture of a full shot so you can see where the heck I am. I'm in a Citco gas station. It's a Citco gas station convenience store. So I'm asking the guy, he's showing me the signs, and I can see that this is the convenience store, and around behind the place where, you know, the checkout, there is a row of booths, old, uncomfortable-looking booths, so you can buy biscuits there. It's a convenience store in a gas station. I was so disappointed. So this is like a way for them to sell t-shirts. And that's a great way to sell t-shirts because, you know, who wouldn't want a Biscuits and Porn t-shirt except anybody who ever went there and could see that it's nothing but a... So the guy's standing there telling me, oh, here's the other sign. And I'm like, I'm looking in, And I'm looking, and I say, where's the porn? Because I could tell where the biscuits were. But it was a convenience store. He says, oh, there's a rack of magazines right here, and you can get videos behind the counter. What a ripoff. Not that I wanted porn. Not that I would have gone into a porn shop. But I wanted it to be really real and cool. But it wasn't. It was a convenience store. I'm not really ranting that it wasn't a porn shop. Because I'm not a fan of porn shops. I just thought it was, bait and switch. It felt like bait and switch to me. So anyway, there you go. Biscuits and porn. Big disappointment. Big disappointment. I wanted to be, titillated, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't know what I wanted. But I didn't want it to be a convenience store, apparently, because I felt really ripped off. So I did a lot of reading. Sat and listened to the ocean. It was lovely. Was in the pool a little bit. It was nice weather. In fact, next year we've decided to keep this house after all, but we're going to take this week that we went on. It's cheaper, so we could afford it, even if not, we don't fill up all the rooms. So we do like the house. So their niceness to us paid off because we ended up re-upping that house after all, when we had already told them we weren't going to do that. So we had a lovely time, and we got back on Saturday. Pearl was at camp for the week, or 6 days, 5 days, whatever it was. And we had company this week. So we got home on Saturday. I straightened up on Sunday all day because the house was just straightened up all day. Not the whole house. My room totally not straight, and the dining room isn't straight either. It was just too much. But everything else, well, not Dennis's room either, but I don't have anything to do with that. But Dennis's room didn't get done either. But the rest of the house, I straightened up and got it done. And on Monday, I had a cleaning company come and clean the house from top to bottom. It was called a deep clean. And she says, we start at the corner, upper corner, and we work all the way down. And that's what they did. And the company is called 3 Amish Ladies and an English Woman. We're about 30 miles from Lancaster. We're about 10 miles from Lancaster County. And there are Amish all over. There are Amish people in our neighborhood. Well, not our exact neighborhood, but close. And so this is the name of the company, 3 Amish Ladies and an English Woman. Well, of course, the English woman is the one who drives them around because the Amish ladies aren't allowed to drive. It's more than just those 4 people now, and they did a great job, and it's so nice to have the house clean. Oh my gosh, it's a totally quality of life kind of thing. I hate to clean. I just hate it. So anyway, the house got clean on Monday, and on Tuesday, Connie of Chili Knits and her husband Danny came to visit. And we had a lovely time with them. They could only stay about 24 hours because Danny's uncle from the West Coast was flying in to see him. And so they had to leave a little earlier than we had anticipated. So that was too bad. But they're on their way to Rhinebeck. And it is Thursday. So she's helping out at Needles Up, the Needles Up event tomorrow. And she had originally thought she was going to be doing a trunk show at a shop in the town of Rhinebeck, but that didn't work out this year, although she's hoping maybe next year. But she and Danny are there and will be staying in a Airbnb with a bunch of people, and she was really looking forward to that. But meanwhile, they came and stayed with us, and we had a lovely time. Dennis cooked for them, and we just sat, and Connie they brought pisco. Connie made us pisco sours. They were delicious, as usual. And we just had a lot of fun. And then yesterday they took us out to lunch and we did some shopping. And then they headed out to meet up with Danny's uncle. So that was fun. We are here madly packing because our big trip starts tomorrow. We are, And I forgot. And Connie brought me a present. She's so lovely. I love her yarn. I love her colors. So she brought me, she's like, you like purple, right? Which of course the answer is yes, but I like almost everything. So this is what she brought me. 2 purples. One is called, this is called Emma. Emma is her daughter's name. That's beautiful. Lots of colors in that. And this one is called Lilac Dreams. That's a beautiful tonal lilac. Got the sun coming in funny over here. And then this is her Halloween color bundle called Trick or Treat. So these are lovely. And these 2 are her Cuddly Sock, which is 85% merino and 15% nylon, and these are 100% superwash merino. So these are superwash too. So how fun is that? So that was a gift from Connie, so that was so sweet. Dennis and I are going on our big trip. Another big trip. I mean, no, let's not, I'm not trying to kid you that we haven't already had a big trip this year because we went to Chile in the spring. But this is a big trip. We leave tomorrow night. We're going to London for 4 days. We arrive in London Saturday morning, and we leave London on Tuesday, and we're flying to Egypt. And so we're spending almost 3 weeks in Egypt, 2.5 weeks in Egypt. We are going to Cairo, to Luxor. We did 3 days in Egypt on our big trip last fall. And they just started offering this trip that's all within Egypt. And so we signed up. It includes sailing up the Nile, which is amazing. So we start out in Cairo for a couple of days. Then we fly to Luxor. And Cairo is where the pyramids are. They're in Giza, but Giza is a suburb of Cairo, and it's one of those cities that has expanded so much. If I can find it, I will show you a picture that I took last year on there, and it's the view that the Sphinx has. You know, we always see a picture of the Sphinx and we're looking at the Sphinx's face, but if you stand behind the Sphinx and see what the Sphinx is looking at, it's an interesting picture, and I hope I can find it. If I can, I'll put it there, because the Sphinx is looking at Cairo. Because you picture, there's nothing but desert. There isn't, if you look one direction. The pyramids really are on the edge, and after that it's desert. But before that is Cairo. So Cairo has an amazing museum, which we did not get to see, and we're going to see that. And then we're going to see the pyramids again, which, you know, I'll do every year. I'm fine with that. So that's going to be amazing. Then we fly to Luxor. And Luxor is where the Temple of Karnak is, which we saw, and the Temple of Luxor, which we saw at night last year, so we'll be very happy to go during the day and be able to really look at it. And these are amazing ancient ruins, and the hypostyle halls on these temples are amazing. And anyway, we're looking forward to that, and we're going to be staying at the Winter Palace Hotel again. We stayed there one night on our last trip. We're there 2 nights this time, and it's an amazing old, you know, the British built it in the day of the Raj. I guess that would be India and not Egypt, but you know, back in the day when they were like in charge of everything. And so it's an amazing old hotel. You know, the Poirot Death on the Nile with David Suchet. There are scenes that I'm sure were shot here. The beautiful big hotel in that movie. Anyway, we're staying there 2 nights, and I'm very excited because we were only there 1 night when we were there before, and I'm interested in just spending a little bit more time in the hotel itself. Then from Luxor, we get on a sailing boat, and we're going to be on a tour, and there will be 15 people, I think, on our tour, and possibly 16. But the sailing boat that we will be on, it will be just for our group. So it's not going to have other passengers besides us. And has got a sail in the front and a sail in the back. It's a very traditional Nile sailing ship. And it does not have a motor. It has a skiff so that if, we can't go anywhere, it can pull us till we catch the wind again. But that's not typically done. And so we will be sailing up the Nile. So I'm very excited about that. We'll be on that boat for 5 days. Then we get to Aswan, and we get off the boat in Aswan, and we stay over in Aswan, and we go over to Abu Simbel, which is about 180 miles from Aswan, and we'll stay overnight there one night and come back to Aswan. Then we fly back to Cairo, and the main part of the tour is over then, but we did an add-on at the end to go to Alexandria for a few days. So then we fly to Alexandria, or we drive to Alexandria, and then do some touring of Alexandria before we come home. And we leave tomorrow. I'm so excited. But also exciting is while we're in London, we have friends in London who we have plans to meet up with, and that'll be fun. But I am meeting Leslie of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. I'm so excited. She lives not too far from London, and she's meeting us on Sunday. We're going to go to a museum together, the Soane Museum, Sir John Soane Museum, and maybe we'll take her to tea. I don't know. We haven't made that specific of plan as to what we will do after the museum, but I am so excited to meet her. I love her podcast, Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast with Leslie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I love it. It's a monthly podcast. I think she's been doing it all year. I think she has 9 episodes. She started in January. Really seems like a lovely woman, and I am so excited to meet her. I cannot tell you. One of the highlights of this trip, and there are many things that I suspect will be highlights of this trip, but this is a big one, so I'm so excited. I'm coming, Leslie! I don't know if she won't have a chance to watch this before I get there, because who knows when this is going to come up. Well, it's got to go up before tomorrow afternoon, because I got to go to the airport. Anyway, so that's fun. We're really very excited about that. I'm so excited to meet her, and Dennis is looking forward to meeting her too. We're not meeting her husband. He's in charge of the dog apparently, so he won't be coming, so it'll just be Leslie. So we'll do a few things in London and then head off to an adventure in Egypt. It's so exciting to me to be able to go to Egypt. Well, this is why I went last year on that trip, even though we already had our big trip for the year booked. And I said to Dennis, I didn't think I'd be able to go to Egypt because, world politics and how things were, that it would be too dangerous. And when Overseas Adventure Travel, which is the company we use, offered that trip, I told Dennis, I don't care if we've already had a trip this year, we're going, because this may be my only chance to go to Egypt. And if they, if we say, oh, we'll do it next year, and then something happens and they don't have that next year, I would be devastated, because going to Egypt was a bucket list for me. So while we were on that trip, we found out about this trip, which is all within Egypt. And sailing up the Nile, who doesn't want to do that? So we're very excited and very lucky to be able to do it, and things are calm enough that we can do it. We spoke to our trip leader today, who is Egyptian, an Egyptologist in Egypt, and so we're very excited to go. So that is that. That's what's happening. Oh my gosh. So, and when we get home from this, we're only going to be home for a week, and then we head to Florida for Thanksgiving. We're driving the dog and everybody, we're all going to go to Florida. I got the sun in me now because it's late. I'm already drinking my champagne. One more thing I want to tell you. Oh, and I have to, and after I shut up, I'm going to put who won the second Podiversary giveaway. Thank you so much for all the lovely comments. I was interested to hear how you found my podcast and what I could do to improve it. And everyone's been so kind to say, oh no, it's great. But I guess people who want it improved, maybe just don't stick around. I don't know. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm so glad to have you guys in my life, and that you like the podcast, and that you let me know, because it just is so special for me. Really amazing. So I will be drawing the winner of that skein of yarn, but I did want to show you I have one more goodie. This is one of my favorite pictures. It's called Sleeping June. Sleeping June. Sleeping June. I'm sure it's called Sleeping June. And I forget who did it anyway. This is from a calendar, and I had that calendar, and I think I finally threw the calendar away. I took the calendar off the wall. This was September 2011. When I got to this one, I never changed the calendar again. It just stayed on my wall, September 2011, and when I was going to be seeing the Crafty Toads, I decided I wanted to commission a yarn based on this painting. So they did. It came today. I can't believe it. They mailed it yesterday. It came today. I didn't think, because I'm stopping my mail, so I wasn't going to get it. Here it is. Sleeping June. This is their Silky Toad, which is 70% superwash merino, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. I think Helen did this. I'm not sure though. Isn't that beautiful? So this is it's a little brickier than June is, but it really captures, and it's got a little bit of those colors from the other things in the painting besides her, but it really captures the tones, different tones of the orange and the apricot. So I'm very pleased with it. I'm very excited. This is going to be a shawl of some kind, I'm quite sure, because I only got 437 yards. So I have 70 yards. That's not going to be enough for a sweater for me, for sure. But I'm really happy with it. Thank you, ladies. It is gorgeous. So they do take commissions, special commissions. I took them my picture and they made me some gorgeous yarn. I'm on an orange kick or apricot kick or whatever the heck color this is. Isn't it beautiful? So those are my acquisitions. I haven't bought very much yarn. The other yarn I had was a gift from Connie. And it is my intention to not buy very much yarn next year. So I just want to warn you, if you're here for the acquisitions, it may get boring because I have a lot of yarn and I have way more than that. And it's time for me to start knitting my yarn. And I'm going to do that. So you'll be seeing yarns you probably don't know I have. So it's almost like acquisitions, except they're not new. They're just yarns you haven't seen before. So I will be doing that. So I will stop now and do the drawing. And so I'll be right back. Okay, I drew. I locked the thread. Thank you so much, everybody who participated. And there were 21 posts, and one of them was mine, so it doesn't count. Siri picked number 11, and I did take a screenshot, but I believe you believe me. And the winner of the person who was post number 11 was Knitting to Make It. Lisa, Knitting to Make It. Welcome, and thank you so much for participating. And thank you, everyone, for watching the podcast and making this such a special thing for me. And I'm glad to hear that you like it, and it makes for such a lovely community, and thank you so much. So I have to go edit this podcast and finish packing, and I will follow me on Instagram if you have any interest in London and Egypt, because I will be posting pictures of my travels, and I will be telling you all about it in my next podcast, which should be in about a month. So I hope you all have wonderful, wonderful time while I'm gone, and I hope you have lots of time to do the crafting that brings you joy. And I will see you soon. Bye. Baby. Hey!